If people aren't gravitating towards your idea in its current form, and you see that there's a clear pivot that you need to make, and you're not willing to make that pivot because it'll take away from the art form, that's completely your decision. But you have to understand what the results are going to be of that.
Hey, this is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 161 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. This episode is brought to you by woman-owned and operated Skinny Dipped, the chocolate-covered almond reinvented. Skinny Dip almonds are non-GMO certified, ethically sourced chocolate, have no artificial flavors or sweeteners, and are PPO-free almonds. They are the perfect snack for on the go, and they're healthy too. Get 20% off your purchase by using the code DREAMSANDDRIVE at skinnydip.com. All right, so today's guest is Benoni Tagoe. Currently, Benoni is the head of business development for Issa Production, so he's been behind some of your favorite shows, including The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl and HBO's Insecure. He's also known for his work with his management and consulting company, The Bizz Plan, which works with various media brands, including Uninterrupted, which is LeBron James' sports platform, beauty entrepreneur Peak Mill, and financial expert Tanya Rapley, who was also a guest on the show. And on today's episode, Benoni is going to dive into the secrets of building traction and getting results. Whenever you're dream driving, you really have to be focused on what are the real things that you have to do in order to get the results you want. So Benoni is going to take us through those things that you can do as a creator and as an entrepreneur. So if you're enjoying this episode, please make sure you share it with a friend. I love it when you guys are sharing on social. Remember, we are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can use the hashtag Dreams and Drive as well. Please, if you're not already part of our Facebook group, you can join us by searching Dream Driver Mastermind the next time you're logged on, or just go to dreamsanddrive.com/Facebook. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about this episode. Hope you enjoy. Hi, Benoni. Welcome to this episode of Dreams and Drive. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, as we were talking before this got started, we're connected in so many different ways. We have a mutual friend, Kristen Carter, who was a guest on this show. And we also, one of your clients, Tanya Rapley, was an episode guest was a guest on the show back in 2017. So everything comes full circle, right?
It's definitely full circle. Tanya does a lot of podcasts, and it's interesting because every time I do a podcast interview, they're like, oh, we had Tanya on here like a couple months ago. And I'm like, it's funny how that works out. But yes, it's coming full circle, and it's happening the way it's supposed to.
Right. So I like to start interviews going back in time. So I want you to do a little bit of reflecting for me. How would you describe yourself as an 8-year-old? What was inspiring you back then?
As an 8-year-old, I was just very curious. I've always been a sports fan, so, that's part of my life even to this day. But, watching a lot of sports as a kid, Sports Center all the time, but really just being curious and trying to understand why things were the way that they were. I've always had an entrepreneurial type of mind where I would be looking to build something or try to sell something. And so, that's pretty much how my life is now. But back then it was more of just like trying to figure it out, Did
you have a venture that you started as a young kid? I was like the neighborhood hustler. I sold tea bags. I sold bookmarks. I sold all sorts of things.
I actually wasn't. A lot of it was because my parents didn't really allow me to do much.
Okay.
My dad... Well, I'll just say this. You know how like when you were in school and they give you like the scholastic things to sell, like you got to go sell chocolate or you got to sell things around your neighborhood.
Yeah,
Did
you
get
like a prize at the end if you
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I remember, and this will always stick with me, every time we would have like an assembly or a teacher would pass out those catalogs and they would say, go sell this, give it to your parents, tell them to take it to work or sell it around your neighborhood. I'd be so excited because competitive nature in me. I'm like, I could do this. I'm going to get a prize. And then I would get home and my parents would basically say, well, this seems cool, but, we're not going to do it because they want you to sell stuff when everybody lives in the same neighborhood. Like the people that you go to school with live in the same neighborhood. And I'm like, back then that made a lot of sense. But at the same time, part of me, now that I'm older, I'm kind of like, yeah, but like, let's figure out a marketing strategy. Like, let's figure out what our secret sauce is. Like, how can we get these into more hands or in front of as many people as possible? So to answer your question, no, I wasn't venturing out and trying to create anything because I feel like I was really stifled. And it's not necessarily my parents' fault. That's not to rag on my parents. It was just, for them, they're not entrepreneurs. That just wasn't their path. They were very much so down the traditional path. And so to them, they didn't necessarily get it. But yeah, so no, 8-year-old Benoni selling cookies or, lemonade stands or anything like that.
What was the dream for you then? Like growing up into adolescent, what was that thing that you saw yourself doing once you graduated from high school?
Honestly, I don't think I've ever talked about this before, but, as a kid, I would always have this thought that it was always interesting to me that when people would pass away, depending on who they were, sometimes they would just be forgotten. And then you would see other people when they pass away, like if it's a celebrity or something like that, they would have like parades and like they'd be all over the news. And as a kid looking at that was always interesting to me because I'm like, if someone dies or is no longer with us, like everybody should be celebrated the same. But as humans, we make levels to everything, and everyone wasn't treated the same when they passed away. I think my drive, I didn't really know what this meant, but my drive was always that when my time was up on earth, I wanted to be remembered and I wanted to be celebrated. And I always had that thought as a kid, which is kind of might be a sick, morbid thought as a kid.
No, that's all right. I used to want to be a more, a funeral director. I had this obsession with morticians and stuff. I never told anyone that either, but a brief point in my childhood, I wanted to be one of those. So it's all right.
Yeah. So yeah, I essentially wanted to be remembered. Don't ask me for what, don't ask me, how I was going to do that. But I just knew that as a kid, when my time was up, I wanted to be remembered and I wanted to have an impact.
You know what that also makes me think of too is, did you have this feeling that you had some kind of purpose or that you were special in a way? Because I understand what you mean when it comes to you wanted to have an impact and wanted to be remembered. Did you at that time feel like you were put here on earth to do something, but you weren't yet? You didn't quite know what that was?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When I was a kid, I would notice when I was in class that, if there's a lot of kids running around, this is, as early as elementary school, if there's a lot of kids running around and maybe the teacher's having a hard time getting in control of the class, I noticed that whenever I spoke up or if I answered a question that was asked to the class in general, I noticed that everyone was quiet and listened to what I had to say. And I remember even as a kid, I was like, I don't know what this means, but I do know that whenever I speak up, people stop and listen. So I don't know, I should use this in some way. That's
that early leadership, that early leader in you.
Something, yeah, for sure.
What was the plan for Benoni post high school?
Well, in high school, I went to an advanced high school, so I was basically taking college classes while taking high school classes at the same time.
You were in Las Vegas. I'm trying to position us. Where in the U.S. are we at this point?
Yeah, at this point, I'm in Vegas. I spent my 9th grade year and lived in D.C. I went to a charter school out there, but my 10th through 12th grade years, I was in Vegas. And I was attending this school where part of the program is they allow you to take high school classes and then they'll pay for your college classes as well. Every semester, they'll give you a budget so you can pay for various college classes. And so when I graduated from high school, I got a scholarship and an academic scholarship. And I ultimately just went to UNLV, which was right up the street. I was pretty much kicking it with the same people I went to high school with. And to be quite honest, I didn't really get pushed to go to college. I just went to college because it was a thing that I was supposed to do. And I struggled very early on because it was my first time living alone, my first time having a roommate, having to work a job, having to pay rent, etc. And since I was struggling, I would look at all the people that I looked up to and that I admired, people like your P. Diddy and, your famous basketball players. And I would be like, oh, well, they didn't finish school, or, they went to college and they didn't do as good in school. And look at how successful they are. And so ultimately I decided to drop out because I just felt like I had something to bring to the world that I didn't necessarily need school for. And so dropped out of school, did that for a couple of years. And then I found out about a school called Musicians Institute, which was in Hollywood. And at the time I was running around, with local artists, managing them. And I really was trying to follow in the footsteps of someone like a Diddy. And so I found this school in LA and I applied to it. I got accepted. I ended up going to that school where I studied the music business. And
I've never heard of that school before.
Yeah. It's a small school. It's called Musicians Institute. There's another one called Full Sail that's based in Orlando. Pretty much the same type of school. Okay. But I was able to focus specifically on the music business. So I did that. I finished that program. And then that led me to, various internships and then various music industry jobs in the beginning. But now I actually go to Penn State. So I'm actually enrolled in school. I don't really talk about it a lot, but
we have a lot of firsts on this interview so far.
Yeah, definitely give you the exclusive.
Congratulations. I always tell myself I do not want to go back to college. It's funny because I'm actually going to Princeton reunions this weekend, and it's just like, I do not miss college, meaning the work. I miss the people, but nothing else.
I ended up going back because, right now I'm at this place in my career where I'm not necessarily going to make more money with a degree unless I go to law school or go to
become a doctor or something.
Yeah, get a medical degree. So it's not necessarily about the money or quote unquote getting a good job. It's really a personal thing. And early on when I left school, I was I was getting passed up for a lot of jobs, and there was a lot of opportunities that weren't afforded to me because I didn't have that piece of paper. And so now that I'm older and I'm kind of calling my own shots and making my own rules, I essentially decided to go back to school just because I wanted to finish it. But now it's gotten even deeper. So it's once I finish this, getting my bachelor's degree, then I want to actually go back to school. My end goal is to end up in going to business school at Stanford. That's the goal. And then
we all need goals, right? You got to position yourself where you want to be. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then after that, probably getting a psychology degree, maybe even getting my doctorates in psychology somewhere. Cause I have this interest in the way that people think and the reasons why people do the things that they do.
Oh my gosh, that is going to change this whole interview, Benoni. I'm telling you, because it's funny because you know how you always, when I create my questions, I leave a blank space in the middle of what questions I can fill in as we're talking. And I kind of thought where I wanted to end, but I really want to come back to this psychology, right? Because that's really the core of business. That's the core of content. That's the core of getting people to make decisions, is you have to understand what clicks and why does it click.
Absolutely. You got to know. That's the core of business. That's the core of marketing, right?
Yeah,
that's the core of storytelling. A lot of what I do is marketing, storytelling, and then, obviously building businesses. So it's very important.
So let's go to the early entrepreneurial days, right? When was the first time that you were like, oh shit, what am I doing? This is not going as planned. And how did you work through that?
Yeah. There's ones before I got on this interview. But I think that, coming to LA, essentially dropping everything in Vegas and moving to LA and having to sleep on a friend's couch, there was moments in that where I was broke and I had a car payment at the time, couldn't afford my car payment, could barely afford gas, didn't really have money in my pocket. There was moments in that where I was like, what am I doing? I was living comfortably, quote unquote, in Vegas. I could just go back to Vegas and be okay. But here I am, like, struggling, trying to figure it out. So, the early days of moving to LA were very difficult. And then I had some successes. Like, there were some things that happened. I got some jobs. I started making a little bit of money. But even in that, there was times where those things ended, because the entertainment industry is a very fleeting industry. So there would be times where I would essentially, like, not be making the money that I was used to making, and then I would have to start off at square one. So, the struggle is a reoccurring and ongoing thing. The only thing that is different about it, or the only thing that we can change about it, is essentially our mindset around it, and like how we feel about it and how we respond to it. But, struggle is just a part of it. And drama, you can inter-exchange, if that's even a word.
You're making a word today.
Making it a word. You can inter-exchange struggle and drama, and I think that drama is really the spice of life. A lot of times that people associate drama with something negative, but I think drama doesn't always have to be negative, and I think that drama ultimately creates the right type of friction to make something great.
Oh, that is so true. So true. Even thinking about content, right? Nobody wants a flat story. You need something to happen to somebody in order for them to make a decision about something to keep the story going. So when we face those moments in our own lives, as you said, it's really about figuring out, all right, so what do we do now? One of the things I want to ask you is, what do you think were the strengths that you were realizing about yourself, not what other people were telling you, but the things you were learning about yourself and realizing, wow, I'm really good at this?
Really, it goes back to being a kid again, like having something to say and people like wanting to listen to what you say. So I was like, okay, so I know that I could speak and people are willing to listen. Okay, so I got that. Then I was like, okay, I know that I'm a creative and I like to build things. Okay, cool. So then it became a thing of like, okay, I'm interested in a lot of things that people aren't interested in, but they need, or they don't even. Sometimes a lot of like life is like knowing what you don't know. Like there's a lot of things that I'm able to offer my clients that they don't even know that they're looking for, and I'm like, I bring it to them, and they're like
what?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's like little things, like something as simple. This is going to sound crazy, but something as simple as a email list, right? If you have an email list, like that's a certified way to print money and to connect with your audience in a way that you have never done before. Everybody's like, oh, I'm going to build my social media following. You will be surprised at what you can do with an email list. Like that's typically all my clients will tell you. One of the first conversations I have with them is, yeah, so what's your email list looking like? And I have clients that are killing it with their email list. And whenever they put something out, they're able to calculate, okay, if I put this out, that's going to garner me X amount of revenue. Or if I put this out, that's going to garner me, X amount of open rates, which is ultimately going to lead to this other thing. I realized early on that I had a gift for figuring things out and being able to bring things to people that they necessarily didn't know that they needed. That's how my whole relationship started with Issa Rae. Like, I saw what she was doing. I sent her an email and I said, hey, here are some things that you should be thinking about that you're not thinking about, but I think they can help in what you're building with your Awkward Black Girl brand. And she was like, this is great. I love it. Like, let's work. So,
oh my gosh, it sounds so simple in retrospect, right? It's like, yeah. Wow. But you know what's funny? Just talking about how you said sometimes when you speak, people want to listen. I just was on Twitter I didn't see that Barry had sent this, but Barry of Podcast in Color, who also was a guest in the show, episode 75, she tweeted, Rain Shine Love is interviewing Benoni Bizz tonight, and I cannot wait for the hour of hearing him talk. Isn't that funny? Like, you just said that, right?
It's hilarious.
You got that. Obama appeal when it comes to speaking.
Wish I had that kind of swag. But no, Barry is dope. I mean, she's really, what she's building with her platform is amazing, and it's very needed. But yeah, I always appreciate the support.
So let's go to 2011 when you met Issa Rae. So you sent her this email, you pitched how you could help her, and you guys started working together. What was the plan? Like, what were you brought on to do? And then how did you help build her Issa Rae Productions?
Really, the plan was to make Awkward Black Girl the biggest show that we can make it on the internet. That was the only plan. It was tunnel vision on that. And And so it was really like, okay, we know that we're getting an audience. How can we take that audience and multiply them? Or how can we make money off that audience? Do we need to do merch? Do we need to tour this? All of those types of things. Nowadays, there's a focus on a lot of different projects and a lot of different business initiatives. But back then, it was tunnel vision on making Awkward Black Girl the biggest thing ever.
Do you remember what were some of the things that you guys really honed in on in order to make that a reality? Because there might be people listening in right now who are trying to make whatever they're working on the biggest thing ever in their respective markets. Like, what are some tips you can share from those Awkward Black Girl days that you think are still relevant today?
I mean, audience development was, the key thing. And it still is super relevant today. So, okay, where's our audience? How do we go to our audience? How do we take one person and make them two? How do we make two into four, et cetera? So there was a lot of different strategies involved with community, which is a huge thing. I mean, community is always going to be big for the rest of our lives, right? And for every generation after us. And community was big way before we ever walked this earth. But we tried to do a lot of things based around community and finding people who identified with being awkward and Black. So, we did watch parties. We did parties online, like, hey, everybody, we're going to be on Twitter talking about this given topic at this time. Come join us. So building a community is always number one. Figuring out how to build a community is always number one, I should say. Figuring out how to multiply the audience that you have, getting the people that you have that are rocking with you, the early adopters, getting them to go out and bring other people in, their friends, etc. So a lot of that stuff we're still doing and still applies.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. I think sometimes people think that if you make it, they'll come. But no, you really have to give them a reason and not incentivize them, but show them that you care. That's something that I found even with building Dreams and Drive is in the beginning, you have time to reach out and build community, right? I hate when I talk to other content creators and they're like, I don't have time to invest in social. I don't have time to try to, market. I'm like, what are you doing it for then? Why? If you're not doing it to help build some type of community, what's your why? And I think that's what a lot of content creators sometimes, don't realize that it's important.
Oh, yeah. You got to know your why. Because a lot of things are not going to work and you're going to fall on your face or you're not going to be happy ultimately with the way things are going. So, yeah, you definitely have to have a why so that you can, resort back to that.
So how did you guys start figuring out how to make money from or how to monetize your content and generate revenue? Because that's something that a lot of content creators, I feel like creators in general get this, not a bad name, but sometimes that's a big struggle is monetizing the content and actually being able to live off what you're creating.
I mean, we're still trying to figure that out. We're fortunate to be in a position to where if we have an idea, we can go to the big names like a HBO and we can literally say, hey, here's a project that we have in mind or an idea. Do you like this? And if so, are you going to pay for it? But outside of that, we still have our YouTube channel and, that brings in monthly revenue, but making money from content is extremely difficult. I always feel people disrespect the process in terms of, I'm going to get a brand involved with this project, but there's so many levels and steps to you getting a brand involved for your idea. So it's an ongoing thing, but I would say that, if you can show that you can build an audience and now you don't have to have a super massive audience. It just has to be an audience that's highly engaged and fits in a particular market. You can be able to push that. And then another thing is I don't like to rely, even with the Bizz plan and all of my clientele, I don't really ever try to rely on outside revenue generation. I always try to figure out what can we do in-house that we can disperse to our audience to make money. So whether it be merch, whether it be touring, whether it be consulting, online courses, whatever the case may be, whether it be building a membership community, I'm always trying to figure out what we can control in-house because at the moment that you start having to go outside, that's when things get difficult.
Like, why do you think that? You know how you said people want to get that big brand to sponsor them, and then they'll continue creating. Like, why do you think so many people hesitate when it comes to figuring out what they can do to produce revenue?
I think that they struggle because it's a very oversaturated market. Everybody wants to create content. Everybody can create content. And then everybody thinks that they're a lot better than what they actually are. Like,
you need that confidence though, right? You need that confidence just a little bit.
Yeah. I don't want to, I want everyone to be uplifted, and I don't want to bring anybody down. That's listening. However, there's work that needs to be put into everything that you do. Like, I'm not going to walk into a doctor's office and say, I'm going to perform a surgical operation today. I have to go, whether it be school, whether it be reading books, whether it be getting advice from my peers. I got to go and figure out how to perform that surgery. And with entertainment, because the barrier of entry is so low, people just think, oh, I can create it. But no, it takes a lot of thought. It takes a process to be able to execute on a high level. I look at somebody like a Lena Waithe, and I've seen Lena Waithe run around for years before. Like, right now, I'm seeing her on DirecTV commercials, Nike commercials. She has a hit show on The Chi. She's on Dear White People. But I saw her run around for years with doing table reads, having various writers' room, putting her money up and creating projects before anybody really actually cared who she is or what she had to say. And I think that it's that type of dedication, it's that type of commitment that will ultimately lead you to be able to create something that will ultimately get people to want to buy from you or to support it in a multitude of different ways.
Yeah, and being in it for the long run, I've sometimes, try to tell people, I have people who hit me up, and I've only been in this podcast game for 2 years and 6 months now, right? And people have come to me, they're like, I started a podcast 3 months ago and I'm not getting any traction. Should I quit? And I'm like, what? It's only been 3 months, right? A lot of us sometimes want to give up so quickly. And to me, I always tell myself, because, Oprah is my auntie in my head, right? 3 years into Oprah's career, she had no idea where she'd be right now. But what if she had quit the newsroom and said, I don't want to do this anymore? She would never went on and had her own show, So it's you have to be in it for the long run. But I sometimes feel like especially the millennial generation, we're hit it and quit it type of people. You know what I mean? It's very hard for us to keep focused. What would you say to that creative who is having a hard time seeing the long-term vision or having a hard time wanting to stay in it for the long term?
You have to think about what your goals were when you first started it. Sometimes your goals may be primarily financial based, I need to make this money so that I can pay my rent. That's one thing. But outside of that, try to figure out what your goals were when you first got into it before you started hitting the roadblocks. When you were laying in bed and you were looking at the ceiling, or when you were taking a shower and you just had this great idea, and as soon as you got out the shower, as soon as you got out of bed, you had to call your best friend and tell them about it. Tap into that feeling. And once you tap into that feeling and you remember why you started this at the core, that will ultimately, I feel reignite your hunger to keep doing it. Because the truth of the matter is, you're going to get slapped in the face. I have times all the time, my talent management company, the Bizz Plan, is doing well for itself right now. I have 5 clients. They're all doing extremely well for themselves as individuals. But I'll be lying to you if I didn't tell you there's been times where I'm like, do I really want to do this? Because when I'm tired, I have a headache. Literally before I got on this interview with you, one of my clients called me and I'm on the phone with her for 20 minutes and she's going through something professionally. And I'm giving her advice and telling her that it's going to be okay. And this is how we're going to approach it. But meanwhile, I got a headache and I'm hungry and I got to jump on this interview and get my mind right to talk to you. So there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of people pulling at me in a lot of different ways. But whenever I have those moments where I'm like, is this what I want to do? I just have to tap into that core and figure out, okay, this is why I'm in it. This is what the ultimate end goal is. This is where I am now, but this is where I see myself going. And I just go from there.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. So you guys know I love chocolate and I'm all about wellness too. And I really only talk about products that I personally can endorse. That's why I'm so excited to tell you guys about Skinny Dipped, which is the chocolate-covered almond reinvented. They are non-GMO certified, are ethically sourced chocolate, have no artificial flavors or sweeteners, there's no wax or shellac, and they are PPO-free almonds. Definitely the perfect snack for on the go. Another reason why I'm recommending Skinny Dipped is because they are also good for you. Remember, if you're dream driving, your health is wealth. Skinny Dip almonds are a good for you snack because they have a thin coat of chocolate, which means less sugar, more protein, and more fiber. And remember, good for you doesn't have to taste bad. Skinny Dip is insanely delicious and the taste quality is on point and has always been central to the development of their products. I personally love their dark chocolate and espresso flavors. And what's great about the brand is there's so many different ways you can eat them. They're perfect for breakfast, chopped up on a fruit salad, in a yogurt smoothie bowl. They're great for post-workout fuel, a midday pick-me-up, and a healthy dessert option, maybe even with some wine. I personally kept some stashed in my desk at work because you know we all need that midday pick-me-up, and I'm like a chocolate fiend. Skinny Dip was founded by a mom and daughter and two of her best friends, so the company is woman-owned and operated, which I'm always in support of. So I encourage you guys to give them a try and check out skinnydip.com and use the code DREAMSANDDRIVE for 20% off your order. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, I think that's something that we all is remembering that end goal is something that we all have to keep in mind, because there's going to be times like, even it's funny because you said how you had to get your mind right. I had to get my mind right too, because I had a long commute from work. There was so much traffic and I'm just like, oh my God, I have to do an interview. But I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? Get your mind right, Raina, get your mind right. And now that we're talking, I feel the energy and it's like, wait, an hour ago, I was like tired. It's funny how sometimes thinking about that can just re-energize you. But Benoni, one of the things that you talked about earlier that I want to get back to, because I think it's really important, is, making sure that we have this process, or that we're putting in the work behind whatever it is that we're creating. What do you think are some of the core things that a lot of creatives are missing when it comes to making their work, I don't want to say legit, but like sustainable? What are the things that you may see with people who are pitching you projects and you're like, wait, where is this? Or why don't you have this yet?
Again, I'm not trying to bring down the mood of this podcast, but...
No, we got to keep it real, though. We got to keep it real.
Yeah, I think that professionalism overall is lacking, especially in the Black community, unfortunately. We really got to get it together. Professionalism is lacking, a lack of understanding of how the process goes. I see so many emails where I feel like people aren't necessarily, they send an email and I'm like, I don't know what your ask is. You sent me this email. It has a lot of nice words and cool paragraphs and whatnot, but I don't know what you're necessarily asking me for. So learning how to get to the point, and learning how to, or being very methodical about who you are and what you can bring to the table, even if you're asking for soliciting advice from me, I think that that's it. And then, when I ask people, a lot of times I'll talk to people and they'll say, hey, I'm looking for a manager. I would love for your company to represent me. I'll say, okay, well, what is it that you're working on? Even before we get on a call, I'll say, hey, send me an email of some things that you're working on, or some of your goals. And you'll be surprised at how many things come in. It's one paragraph and it's this is who I am and this is what I've been doing. I'm like, okay, but I need to know where we're going, because I can't jump on board and lend my time or lend the time of my teammates or my team members to your thing if you don't even have a vision for yourself. My goal is to come on board and help you execute and help you see a bigger picture. But I can't lead the ship all the way. It all starts with you. Yeah, that's so important, that having the vision mapped out in some way, right? It may not be the perfect map, but you shouldn't have to create the vision for the person. Absolutely. Right? Even with you, right? When you reached out and, when you sent the email of first of all, you're here's a link, schedule your interview. And then when you sent all of the things hey, to prepare for this interview, here are the questions that I'm going to ask you. Here are the things that I want you to think about. Like, all of that is great. And it shows that you're dedicated and you're committed to this craft, because you could have easily said, hey, Benoni, this is the time that we're going to talk, just make sure you're on time. And that could have been it. And I would have been on here freestyling,
right.
But you did the proper preparation, which ultimately, I appreciate, because, there's a lot of things going on, but because you took the time and you put in the work, I'm willing to match you and put in the time and the work and delivering you a great episode.
Thank you. And you know what? I will say this. I say this all the time. Internships. This is mad random, but it's going to make sense, right? I am so happy. So when I was, what was I? My first, when I graduated from high school, I did 4 years at CBS Corporation through a program called the Emma Bowen Media Foundation. Have you heard of them? Emma Bowen Foundation?
I have not, no.
Oh, they might actually be really great for Issa Rae Production if you guys are ever looking for really good media interns. So they're basically a program that they match students, minority students, with a partner company for 4 summers, and you basically get to rotate through different departments. So one of the best things, although I did not have the sexiest jobs when I worked at CBS, I worked in human resources, workforce development, business development. But the one thing that I learned from those 4 years is preparation is the key to life.
Everything.
That can just put you on another level. One prepared meeting versus that was just the key game changer to my 4 years. If I learned nothing else, it was send good emails and be prepared. Or make sure whoever you're talking to doesn't have to ask you any questions, and you'll be fine, right? And I think that also goes to show is you need to be around people who can teach you those things. So I think sometimes people think they can learn everything themselves. And I learned in my own career, it's sometimes you don't want to be the star in the beginning. Sometimes it's really good to be on the ground doing the grunt work, because you learn so much through that.
Right. Oh yeah, you got to be and you got to be willing to do the grunt work. I think that a lot of people, they want things to happen so quickly these days, and you got to be willing to grab people's coffee, to wash people's cars, do the stuff that other people don't want to do, and that'll give you appreciation. Right now, even today, I still do a lot of intern type tasks. And, to be honest, I actually need to figure out some of the intern type tasks that I'm doing. I need to figure out what I need to stop doing and delegate, because it's getting to a point where some of those things are taking me away from things that can have a little bit more impact from a top level perspective. Yeah. But I say all that to say that I'm still willing to get my hands dirty and do things that some may not want to do.
One of the things that I was doing some research, you know how you're supposed to do before you do a podcast, listen to other people's interviews, all that stuff, right?
Of course.
And you did an episode, or I don't want to say it was an episode. I think it was a feature with Make Bread. Is it Make Bread? Yeah. Okay. So you had this tip that I thought was so insightful, and I'll let you expand on it, but basically I'll lead you with this idea of don't be an artist. What do you mean by that?
As a creative, and when you're trying to figure out things, sometimes you get so caught up in the original idea, and it kind of, to a lesser degree, it paralyzes you from making that thing something that's commercially accessible, or even figuring out a way to monetize it, because you're so stuck on what the original art form is supposed to be. And again, going back to the core of who you are and what you're trying to bring to the table. If at the end of the day, you want this to look a certain way, feel a certain way, be a certain way, that's completely fine. But you can't be mad if you're not getting the results that you need, if there's a change that's needed. So I don't have all the right answers, but I will say, if people aren't, gravitating towards your idea in its current form, and you see that there's a clear pivot that you need to make, and you're not willing to make that pivot because it'll take away from the art form, that's completely your decision, but you have to understand what the results are going to be of that. So I always encourage people to be aware of being an artist all the time. Don't be an artist to the point where it stifles your growth. I'm not trying to tell you to do something that's going to go against who you are and what you want to create. You should never do that. But, have a little bit of flexibility in what you're creating.
That's so true. It's funny. You know what came to mind? So I had this argument, well, not really argument. I had this discussion with a colleague, I'll say, and he tried to convince me that I need to become an Instagram model if I want to grow my following, right? And I was like, wait. I think I don't understand that, but do you get what I'm saying? Like, we're basically arguing about, he's like, Raina, you know, your content's good, but, you know, people just don't care that much. You need to like make it sexier. And I was just like, wait, this is a moment where I do not agree with you. And I don't think I have to like change. Like, have you ever had that moment where you really had to make a hard decision about how you were going to position or brand one of your clients, or even what you're creating or what your clients are creating?
You know, I always trust the client at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And so I always give my 2 cents. But at the end of the day, you know, like I say, everything that's creative starts with the creator. So I always trust my client, and whatever they say, if they have a strong pushback on something, then I just trust in what they say. Mm-hmm. As long as I see that they're not completely jumping off a cliff, then, you know, I kind of let them just rock out.
Okay. Let's get to that, because I'm so interested in learning about your talent management agency. Is that the Bizz Plan? Is that the name of the agency? I just want to make sure I have it right.
Yeah, that's definitely the name.
Okay. So it's funny because I had this random meeting with this fellow alum, and she told me, like, she's very spiritual, and she told me, she was like, Raina, I think one day you'd make a really good agent, right? And that has always been in the back of my mind, like, maybe one day I'll have my own agency. But like, what caused you to branch out and form the Bizz Plan, and like what kind of things do you help your clients do on the daily?
Yeah, so the Bizz Plan started off as it was a content play. So I had a web series that featured the likes of like a Issa, Lena Waithe, a King Batch from Instagram,
the comedian?
The comedian.
Okay.
Yep. Jabari Johnson, who has the Colors Party and R&B only. So based off of our earlier conversation when we were talking about monetizing your content, you know, I did the content. I was like, this is dope. But I also knew that I wanted to be able to help entrepreneurs. So the content that I was doing was giving entrepreneurs advice, but I wanted to be hands-on and helping entrepreneurs. So I started the Bizz Plan to essentially help entrepreneurs like scale up and figure out, you know, what they're doing that could be done better, or what they're not even thinking about that could be brought to the table. And so as it stands, you know, I have 5 clients, and essentially like my secret sauce is helping to build businesses around my clients. So figuring out, okay, you're making X amount of dollars right now, or you're not making any money at all. How can we create a sustainable or multiple sustainable revenue streams outside of just doing brand deals? Like, I don't ever call my clients influencers. All my clients are social media based, but I don't really work with influencers, people who just post popping pictures and that's it. It's like, okay, if you're posting popping pictures and you're getting a lot of likes, you're getting a lot of comments, okay, cool. How can we scale that into something else, something that's more long-term, something that's more sustainable? So that is the Bizz Plan. My goal is to represent everything that can be represented. So right now I have people who are based on social media. Eventually I'll be doing traditional talent, actors and actresses. Then I'll be transferring over to sports people. So I'll be, you know, representing sports personalities and sports individuals. And then professional video gamers is also a category that I want to take on. And essentially I'm just trying to build the best management company in the world. I think that I have, you know, the best company culture. I'm creating the best company culture that I've ever seen existed. Like, I tried to build a company culture that's almost like Disneyland. All the things, the experiences, good and bad, that I went through at previous 9-to-5s, I've tried to extract and take from that and create the ultimate company culture so that that people on my team are happy as we're servicing our clients.
How are you managing this all? Because I'm thinking, like, this sounds like a lot. Like, how are you keeping the engine running and your head on at the same time?
You know, Advil. Yeah, I really don't know. It's extremely difficult.
Okay.
Actually, I do know. It's having a great team. Like, I have members on my team who are down for the cause, who are very initiative oriented. They take initiative. They bring things to the table. They don't wait to be told to do anything. And so, you know, it's interesting because, you know, I have out of my 5 clients, they all have individual things that they're trying to build, and they have different personalities and different ways that you have to talk to them, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing. But then on the other end, I consider the Bizz plan a client as well, because I'm trying to build the Bizz plan as an entity of its own, to where the company has a name without standing next to the clients, and where the company is making money without having to wait on the clients to make money as well. So essentially, on a day-to-day basis, I'm building 6 businesses at the same time. That's extremely difficult, right? But when you have clients that are willing to be the leaders and the CEO of their businesses, then all you have to be is a COO of it, and to help them, navigate what they're doing. And then, like I said, I have an amazing team that, gives me everything that they have. And that certainly helps.
How do you find the right clients? Because I feel like, especially with your model, having the client who can be the CEO of their brand is really important.
I find people that I have a genuine interest in, as a person. Like, do I like what you're about as a human being? And then it's like, okay, so what are you trying to build? What have you done so far? What is your big picture idea? And then we usually go from there. But with all of my clients, I have a vision for them that is sometimes bigger than even the visions that they may have for themselves. And so it's really about, do I get that, tingling feeling when I meet this person, or when I'm talking about their business, like that I can provide serious value to them.
And I feel like we sometimes need that person in our lives. Although they say no one should believe in you more than you believe in yourself, it is really good when you do have that one person who believes in you more than you believe in yourself. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I need that sometimes, for sure.
Do you have any mentors? Like, who's on your personal maintenance team?
So one of my mentors is a guy by the name of Peter Griffith. He was a former owner of Soul Train and has done a lot of dope things in his career. But I always turn to him like, hey, what do you think about this? One of my friend mentors is Jabari Johnson. He's been able to, start a small party where I remember the first party he did, he had maybe like 50 people. Now he's doing thousands of people every time he does an event. And the way that he's been able to build his business is amazing. So I rely on him. My accountant, she's great because she always keeps me in line. Like, hey,
we need
what are
a good
doing?
Accountant, right?
Yeah. She's always good. And then, I have friends like my cousin, Kiera, who I don't really talk to her about business stuff per se, but I talk to her about being a human, which is always needed, because as an entrepreneur, sometimes we just get caught up in business. So, I got a couple people on my team that I look to for things like that.
Given your vantage point in the industry and just like the players that you're blessed to be able to be around on the daily, where do you think there's still room for growth? Like, what part of the industry are you like, damn, like, I just wish this could change in some way, or damn, people don't know about this, but they should?
That's a tough question, because I don't know if I have anything that I'm really relying or waiting on people to recognize about myself.
Mm-hmm. Or like about the industry, not even like yourself, just like the industry. Like, where do you see there's room for growth or more creators of color to really make a mark?
Oh, well, I mean, I think that economically, like, we just need to be in a better position to be able to fund our own projects and to have access to the money a lot quicker, instead of having to go to people outside of our culture to get their approval and to get their permission for things that they know nothing about. So I think that the simplest answer I can give you is economically figuring out a way to position ourselves better to control the economics. The problem is that for, people of color, we always want to be the creators, and we don't necessarily want to go have a 9 to 5 and go sit in the building. We're just above that. We're like, we want to be creating the projects and bringing it to the people in the buildings. But then we run into this issue where we're bringing projects to these people in the buildings who don't look like us. And then it becomes like, a situation of like, why are they trying to change this? Like, it's supposed to be this way for a certain reason. So we just need to put ourselves in a position where we're executives and, we're ultimately in a position to control the money a little bit better.
And I feel like that also relates to this idea of being true owners of our content, right? Sometimes we're so eager, not to say to sell our souls, but not really understand the business of media.
Yeah, they need to definitely understand the business of media. It's a huge component.
What's something that you've learned about like the business of media over the past few years of you being in it?
I've learned that, you can have a great idea, but, a great idea may not necessarily get you to the next step. There's a lot of moving parts that come with that. A lot of who are you? Who else can you bring to this project type of politics that are played. And I've also learned that, there's a huge disparity from the people in terms of skill level, honestly, from the people that are killing it and the people that are just like, I want to do this, because I just think that people should just take more time to educate themselves on the things that they want to do.
What kind of skill level?
Figuring out how to write. Like if you want to be a writer, like thinking about, what type of writing classes do I need, or how to write, how to, craft a story. If you get called into a writer's room and they're like, okay, we need you to break story, or we need you to figure out how to do a character arc or a story arc, like, can you be able to step up to the plate? So it's things like that. Simple things like putting together a deck of like, hey, this is my story. This is where it starts. This is where it ends. These are the characters, and this is ancillary content that will go with that. And this is why you should buy it. And most importantly, because I'm a part of it, you should buy it even more, because my set of experiences are ultimately going to help contribute to making this the greatest story you've ever heard.
Mm. And they're just people who aren't yet, who want to be in these positions, but aren't realizing that learning those skill sets will be what takes them to the next level.
Absolutely. Mm. Yeah. They just want to because it's so easy to create content. So they're just like, well, I'm just going to create the content and I'm going to call it a day. But no, you could actually put some work in to make sure that when you step up to the plate and when somebody calls you out on whatever it is that you want to create, that, you're able to execute accordingly.
What's one thing that you admire about like Issa Rae's journey?
I like that, she really hasn't changed much. She's still same personality. She has the incredible work ethic. So I really just admire that she's been able to do everything that she said she was going to do. Mm-hmm. And she really hasn't had to compromise a whole lot, and it's all worked out for her.
Yeah, and I always tell people, like, I remember, it's so funny because you never know where someone will end up. I remember when I was like, I want to say a freshman or a sophomore at Princeton, they brought her to campus and she was doing some kind of seminar. And I was like, who's this awkward black girl, Issa Rae? And I didn't go, right? And it's like, right. Damn, I wish I could have, I could have said I met her when she was early on in her career. So last question as we wind down, Benoni, one of the things that I know a lot of people want to know this about you. If you want to make money in this industry, right? Because at the end of the day, some people's goals are they really do not, they want to have an impact, but they also want to be successful, build wealth. Is it possible? Like, is it truly possible?
Is it possible to
be like, how do you think, like, what's the real path to like actually building wealth if you want to be a creator in the media entertainment industry?
Well, first and foremost, and this is what I said in the bread interview, the bread speech that I gave. Mm-hmm. I think it's a privilege to hustle. So first of all, making sure that your life is together, because once you start pursuing all these other things that at the end of the day may not really matter, they're just cool to do. Like when stuff hits the fan and when you're like trying to put food on your table or trying to put gas in your car, mm-hmm. All of those things can be a hindrance to your ultimate growth. So make sure that you're able to put food on your table. Make sure you're able to put gas in your car. Make sure you're able to pay your rent on time before you start like venturing out and trying to create all these other things, because that's ultimately what's most important. If you have a firm foundation as a human being, then everything else will become easier after that. Mm-hmm. And you can also be blinded, like if you're like struggling for money, you're trying to create at the same time, then you'll end up like making decisions that are financial based as opposed to art based. And that could always be a problem.
Oh, that is so important. That is so true. You don't think about that, right? Like if you're starving, you're going to eat something, even if it's not the best thing you like, So sometimes having that, like sitting back and thinking about that is important. Last question. Just because I think a lot of people want to know, What do you do when you feel like giving up? Like, I know that it's tough. Each day is hard out here, but like, what's that thing that keeps you going personally?
I know we've talked about this a lot, but yeah, just really going back to my core and realizing why I started and ultimately realizing, why I got into this. I want to retire in like 5 years and not really have to be working per se. I mean, I'll always be working on something, but I have a goal and I have a very specific mission that I'm trying to get to. And so I just remind myself of that all the time, and I just do what I have to do to get there.
What advice would you give to content creators like myself, who are out here, who are like, few years in and are trying to like pick up traction when it comes to what they're building?
One, keep doing what you're doing in terms of, being consistent. Obviously having dope guests always helps in terms of traction with things like this. But, be honest with yourself and say, okay, what am I doing that's working? And what have I been hanging on to that I need to like let go of? And, never be afraid to reiterate or to pivot and to figure out how you can ultimately scale this thing that you're trying to do. Building content is not easy. Building content in the content space, in the podcast space, is extremely difficult now because everybody's doing it. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done, and that doesn't mean that you can't bring something special to the table.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm personally telling myself is to step out of my comfort zone. I think I've gotten so used to just being behind the mic that I know people want to see video content, and I'm like, I don't like being behind the camera, So it's like that thing that I really have to step outside the comfort zone because like you, it's like I want to have an impact, and I know I was here to have some kind of impact on this world. So that's something I'm personally working on. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're on to something. This is, you featured some amazing people and, your questions are great. So I'm sure you'll get whatever you want out of it.
Thank you. Talking about questions, let's get to our lightning round. So this part of the interview, I'm going to give you a prompt and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind. And we're sticking with our whole dream driving metaphor. So think about being in a car, working towards your goals as I give you these prompts. Okay.
Okay.
The first word is park.
Park. So it's a necessary thing. Sometimes you gotta like literally just sit there and look at all the plays that are being made, and from a methodical standpoint, say, okay, this is what I need to do when I get back in the game.
Reverse.
Necessary again. Like sometimes we're just so busy trying to move forward when actually we could just take a step back and we could see a clearer picture.
Neutral.
Very scary. I know that we're all like trying to get to a place of flow where everything is just, going in the way that it's supposed to go. And, there's everything is moving at its own pace, but that's also very scary because you always want to be a little bit cautious when things are flowing because, sometimes you need to like have that friction and that drama to shake things up a bit. And
then last but not least, drive.
Everyday thing.
Yep.
And drive comes in many forms. Drive is a physical thing. It's a mental thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's an emotional thing. So it's just it's an omnipresent force in life.
If you want to be a dream driver, Benoni, you have to have your keys to success. What are 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road?
Good people around you. Number 1. Number 2, a vision. And a vision that you're not afraid to alter. And then 3, like a firm understanding of reality, like seeing things for what they are, not necessarily what you want them to be.
Oh, that one is so important, right? Because sometimes we could live our life in this fairy tale land, and it's like, nope, you got to live in reality, sister, brother.
Yeah.
And what's a book? I've been asking guests to share books because I'm a bookhead. I love sharing books and I like putting them in our weekly newsletter, The Keys. So when this episode comes out, people will get a blast about about what you talked about. So what's a book that you think dream drivers really need to read that will impact the way they approach their dream driving journeys?
Well, I got a book for you that has nothing to do with business, but it's one hell of a journey.
Okay.
And it's called Homegoing by Yagayasi. And It's by far the best book I've ever read. It's a fiction book, and it just details two sisters who it tracks their journey starting in Africa before slavery, and then it chronicles all the way to present day in the Bay Area.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good.
It's really good. So that's a good book. And then from a business perspective, I would say Purple Cow by Seth Godin, which is one of my favorite books. It just is a book about being different and figuring out a way to like step outside of the box. Another book is Unlabeled by Marc Ecko. I always mention this one. He just really talks about what it's like to have a successful clothing brand, you know, when he started Complex, what that was like, and just how to be vulnerable and how to lead with vulnerability.
I will definitely be linking to all of those books in our show notes. Benoni, this has been such a pleasure. I feel like there were so many other things I wanted to ask you, but I'm so happy that we were able to talk about what we did talk about. Can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you online if they want to learn more about you, they want to connect with you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm on every social media platform at Noni Bizz. That's NONIBIZZ. So you can find me on Instagram, Twitter. Instagram is the main place. And yeah, that's the best way to find me.
Thank you. How do you feel about people who hit you in your DMs? Are you a DM type of person, or you think the email is the best way to connect?
I mean, either one works. I mean, really, yeah, DM, I answer all my DMs. So I don't have a problem with it, but I do have a consultation service. You know, I have to protect my energy, and I'm also, you know, I get paid for a living to like be helping entrepreneurs and helping my clients. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I have people schedule a consultation call with me, and there's a charge for that. But, you know,
that is smart. Is that the link in your bio? The Calendly?
Yeah.
Yes, that is so smart. I need to do one of those. So people always try to get too deep. Like, no, I'm not going to help you solve your life issues in this DM right now.
Yeah, I have no problem. You know, generally I have no problem helping people. I'm always about helping people, but, you know, to a certain extent, because right now, you know, me taking time to help you is taking time away from my business. It's also taking time away from my clients. And I have to be careful about that.
Well, thank you so much for doing this interview today. I know that, you know, this is going to help so many people just get some clarity on what are next steps they can take and from hearing your story. So thank you once again.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 161 with Benoni Tagoe. I hope you enjoyed hearing his dream driving journey as well as his keys to success. And remember, if you love this episode, if you found any of his points to be extremely relevant and helpful to you, please share it with a friend. The best way to share is to post an Instagram story, a screenshot of you listening to it, or you can post on Twitter or Facebook. Remember, we are Dreams and Drive across the board on all those platforms. I also love when you guys use the hashtag Dreams and Drive as well. If you are not already subscribed wherever you're listening, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, iHeart, SoundCloud, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you get notifications every time we have a new episode. Remember to shop Dreams and Drive gear. We still have our summer sale going on, so you can get some cute Dreams and Drive gear for the low. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/shop. And if you're not already part of our Dream Driver Mastermind Facebook group, please come on over and join us. You can just search Dream Driver Mastermind the next time you're logged on, or go to dreamsanddrive.com/Facebook. Every week we have our newsletter, The Keys, that goes out. So if you want to make sure you're part of our email newsletter list, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. Don't forget to get 20% off your Skinny Dip order by using the code Dreams and Drive at checkout. I genuinely love my experience with the brand. I love the almonds. I am also somebody who's really into health and wellness. So to know that the brand is healthy and good for you is an added plus. So I hope you guys can check them out. So unfortunately, we don't have any new reviews to read. You guys haven't left any new ones since last week. So please, the next time you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and a review. I would love to read it. And I just love getting feedback, love hearing what you guys are saying about the show. I get a lot of comments via Instagram and Twitter and stuff, but those reviews are the best place you guys can put that stuff, just because it helps other people who may not be already connected to Dreams and Drive to know about the show and why you should listen. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should tell you about. July 21st, 2018 is Curl Fest in Brooklyn. I will 98% be going. I'm really excited. I went last year and I got to meet a lot of people and see a lot of my guests and just listeners of the show. So if you see me at Curl Fest, please say hello. As always, keep dreaming, keep driving. I just want to end with a comment that I made on one of my most recent Instagram posts on Dreams and Drive. And this is what it said. These last few weeks, I felt like I've been losing my mojo. I've had a lot of stuff going on in the background. I've been trying to figure out what my focus will be for the rest of the year. True talk, I've just been going through a lot this past, few weeks. And I said, ever look back on how far you've come and question certain steps or lack of taking certain steps? As you all hear from our weekly guests, this dream driving journey ain't easy. However, every time I doubt myself or find myself comparing my journey to someone else's, which is something we all do, right? I keep thinking back to my original vision for this platform. I think back to how many people have been impacted and touched by this show I produce weekly out of my childhood bedroom. Even saying that is a little bit embarrassing. But you know what? I have to remind myself, I worked hard to get where I am. I do a lot for a one-woman show. I'm slowly getting more sponsors. Shout out to Skinny Dipped. I'm starting to stop holding myself back and put myself out there for more opportunities. So we can either be focused on our greatness or on our mediocrity. Which one will you choose? I hope you guys all choose greatness this week. I know some of you may be listening to this right now, maybe thinking about all that you have to do or all that you haven't done. But just like I say every week, just keep going, right? Keep dreaming, keep driving. And remember, even if you run out of fuel in your tank, you still got gas because it's always within you. Bye, guys.